things I don't understand is the way mainstream media doesn't follow up its questions when they are doing an interview. It's as if they're just going through a series of questions that they prepared before, and they are not listening to what the candidate is saying, and therefore not following up with the decisive question. I want to play two little videos, or little bits of videos. I want to play first of all, because I've been very interested and I've reviewed all the footage of Farage explaining away the Andrew Parker story, and it's very convincing. Andrew Parker, he said, came into his office in Clacton and spent about 2 hours there before going off with one particular group and a camera crew. And the impression we got from the video was that camera crew had been chosen for that particular group by pure chance. The impression Farage gives in his conversations is that Andrew Parker had groomed the camera crew and then went on to encourage, to goad the other canvassers into saying appalling things. When they didn't, he did. In fact, in the first interview that Andrew Parker gave and that was reported, he said that he was sorry about what he'd said and that he felt that he had been goaded by the camera crew, which is the sort of thing I would expect to hear. And there was no indication there that he was a stooge for Channel 4. But that's the line that Farage takes now. However, when you look at the first interview that Farage gave, he on Channel 4, I think, I'll play it. He suggests that Andrew Parker is someone he met a long time ago, not someone he met on the day of the filming, someone he met a long time ago. Listen to this.
Mr. Farage, Channel 4 News. Would you apologise to the Prime Minister for the appalling racist way that one of your campaigners spoke about Rishi Sunak?
It was horrible.
Do you apologise to the Prime Minister?
It was horrible.
That's not quite an apology, is it?
You can't, how much further can I go? Of course it's an apology. It was horrible. I don't know who this bloke is. Somebody I met once years ago. I mean, awful, horrible, horrible. Almost as bad as the Labour candidate in Clacton and his slurs on white people. Have you covered that?
I'm here to focus
No.
on...
Have you covered the Labour? No.
We scrutinise all of the parties and their campaigns. But if you are as appalled by this as you say you are, why are you trying to deflect? Why are you trying to deflect if you are as appalled as you say you are? Because I would like to ask you also about the members of your inner circle, because they've also made homophobic, racist, xenophobic comments. People who have senior roles in your campaign in Clacton.
I would drink white men's tears. I'm standing for black and Asian people, not pretty.
You see, this story is completely contradicted by the story that he's now got off and that he told on the BBC during the question time question and answer session, that this was somebody who walked in off the street, who he didn't know. Well, of course, that raises other questions about the Reform UK's lack of vetting. And when he was doing an interview today with Trevor Phillips on Sky TV, they pointed out there was a lot of bonhomie.
His services online
but you still don't have any proof that actually he wasn't genuinely a guy who decided he wanted to support.
Well, if you wanted to support us, why not come as the person you really are? Why come using your false acting voice?
Quite a lot of the people who support you come as they really are. There's the guy who described gay people as degenerates. The one who talked about using migrants in small boats as target practice.
Well, that's the same guy.
People who reposted anti-Semitic
That's the
comments.
same guy. Well, hang on.
How many of you had to disown so far?
A few. I inherited...
What's a few? 2, 6,
No,
100?
perhaps a dozen, something like that. Look, Trevor, you know me well enough.
And he pointed out that we'd known each other for 20 years. And he said that Trevor Phillips was very keen to get across the idea that Farage himself may not be a racist, but in the efforts to get his party into Westminster, does he tolerate racism? Does he tolerate prejudice? And what appeals to the racists and the thugs in Farage and in his party? And Farage deflected. Farage, in fact, as far as Trevor Phillips was concerned, asked his own questions and answered his own questions, which was quite frustrating. It was a very good interview. If you haven't seen it, please have a look at it because it's very good. But Farage is already on this spiel, and he is excellent at it, but it contradicts what he said earlier. And at one point, I'm just going to play you this little section here. Trevor Phillips is talking about the UKIP.
When I ran UKIP for all those years, and when I set the Brexit Party up, didn't allow anybody to even be a member who'd been part of one of those groups. Now, I have inherited a startup. I've not even been doing this a month.
Period. And Farage says that he made sure that nobody in UKIP had been a member of the BNP, the National Front, the EDL, and so on, that as soon as this was discovered, they were removed from the party. And at that point, why does Trevor Phillips not cut in and say, well, what about your campaign manager in South Thanet, Martin Heal, who was formerly a member of the National Front? Why didn't you get rid of him? Why didn't you throw him off your campaign? You didn't. And so, it's this smoothness which belies the reality. The reality is that Farage is extremely good at putting together a narrative that works. But as we can see from this, it takes him a little bit of time to construct that narrative. And Trevor Phillips also says, well, the fact that you have established that Andrew Parker is an actor doesn't mean he's not a member of your party. It doesn't mean that he's not that he's a stooge. You haven't established the fact that he's a stooge at all. All you've established is that he works as an actor sometimes. That's all you've done. And Farage doesn't have an answer for that because there is not an answer. Because Farage and his team have not done that work. The one question again that Trevor Phillips should have then asked, and Nigel Farage hinted at it by saying that Andrew Parker had been a member of the Conservative Party. Well then, Trevor Phillips should have said, well, is he a member of Reform UK? Did you take your £25 membership from him? Is he a paid-up member? And if he's not a paid-up member, why is he wearing a rosette for the party? He is representing your party, knocking on doors, and yet you say he's a member of the Conservative Party. And for the Conservative Party, have you checked? Because I would have thought that information needs to come out. That information is important information. And if you haven't checked, then surely the big issue is that Reform UK is too indolent, too lazy, or too ill-equipped as a party. Therefore, we shouldn't trust it to be able to do its proper vetting, its due diligence. If we cannot trust the people who are knocking on our doors canvassing for a particular party, why should we trust the party? If we cannot trust that they belong to that party, why should we trust the party? Anybody could be knocking on my door. Rig up a rosette and knock on the door. I find that quite frightening, that there are parties in the UK that don't check the people who are going out canvassing. I find that frightening. And I find that very, very worrying. And I think that's a bigger question than whether Andrew Parker is an actor. That's a question about the responsibility of the party. And under Farage's leadership, I don't think Reform UK takes responsibility seriously. I think it's all about image. I think it's all about rhetoric. And I think it's all about getting away with it.
But then Mr. Kipling always does make exceedingly good cakes.
Farage, I think Mr. Kipling bakes extremely good cakes. And I think Farage does as well. Quite frankly, I don't believe a word of this. When the story is inconsistent, the cakes are inconsistent too.